This week, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Now, previously I've reacted to Nostalgia Critic's Fox Kids review, where he talks a very little bit about Angela Anaconda. Now, the Channel Awesome team didn't really know the show that well, so I made a quick video to fill in the gaps. However, another reviewer, Mysterious Mr. Enter, does a bigger review through a specific episode where he goes into much more detail. He hates the show. I love the show. So I thought it'd be really interesting to bring that together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at his content and I'm going to check out his review and talk about it from a fan's perspective. Just a heads up, I have absolutely no affiliation with him. I don't know him. Honestly, I haven't even seen too much of his content. So I am going to make fun of the review just a little bit, but please know it's all done in good fun. He also raises some really interesting points about the show that I think are worth looking at. One more thing I'd like to say before I start is that I'm fully aware that most people on the internet downright hate this show. So if you're someone stumbling upon this and you hate the show, I'm not here to try and change your mind. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But if you're curious as to what some sick satanic weirdo could possibly see in it, feel free to continue watching and check out some of my rewatch videos. I don't get paid for this in any way. I'm mostly doing this to get attention for my original series, Katarina the Supervillain. My dream's to be an animation showrunner, and I want the show picked up at Netflix. So I'm still filibustering till that happens. Now, with that being said, I'm going to start this review, and I will be choking down a lot of humble pie in the next few minutes. So, let's begin.
Oh, so you're saying that your show is supposed to be that way?
Well,
your animation is hideous because that's the style you chose.
I like
You're
it.
saying that the sympathetic character getting the tar beat out of them is there to get a different emotion out of your audience.
It's called vengeance and she's not sympathetic.
I argument with you to prove why that argument doesn't hold much water, but all I really need to do is say two words. Angela Anaconda.
Yes!
Angela Anaconda has a distinct style that does everything wrong.
Right. Most people still hate that show. By the way, this episode is going to be The Substitute, which I did rewatch prior to filming this.
It insults every aspect of
I
storytelling.
think it's gone a little far.
Animation is ugly,
Agree to disagree.
to say the least. It seems to be based on vintage photographs,
Yearbooks!
but uses them to absolutely no end, and is very lazy in this animation.
Fair enough, in that even if you like the designs, which I personally do, and I like the animation, I will admit it isn't fluid. It does move very awkwardly, and it doesn't really treat itself the way a 2D cartoon would. And I think there were limitations with this style of animation that you really wouldn't have had with a traditional 2D show, where you do turnarounds and you can see the sides of the characters. You have to really understand how a character would look from a different angle, and the show doesn't really do that, so fair enough.
You know what? Let's take a closer look. Before we go any further, I will apologize for the logo this time. This is the best footage I can get because no one wants to remember the show. Let's
Throne of Lies.
start with the theme song.
My name is Angela. Hey, hello. Welcome to my Marion show.
It's sung by a character who can't sing and doesn't flow very well at all. Angela says that she'll introduce her friends, but she doesn't.
Now to today's story, starring me, and not starring Nanette Memoir.
Do you not know what words mean? She's the antagonist of the episode. So yes, it stars her as much as it stars you.
Here's the thing, he does raise an interesting point on the theme song, and I know it was on his top 20 worst animation theme songs list, but I do agree. It doesn't, as much as I like to joke that the whole point of the show is how much Angela hates Nanette, that's really not what the entire show is. I would say that's 85% of it. But she has three major antagonists in the show: Nanette, Miss Brinks, and her older brothers. And you really don't see two out of the three of them. You don't see her friends, you don't see the people who are on her side. So I think that's a fair assessment. It doesn't do a good job reflecting on what the entire series is. And there are episodes that don't involve revenge, believe it or not.
I think it's trying to be like Monty Python, but to do that you need to be really energetic. And this doesn't really try.
You know, one of the YouTube comments actually gave me an epiphany on this. They said, since he brings up Monty Python, and someone in the comments said, wait, Monty Python, Angela Anaconda, and I just went, I cannot believe I didn't put two and two together on that one. Stealth pun.
Where do you think Brinks is? How should I know, Johnny Abadi, my dim best friend?
Wow, no really. You couldn't make exposition more obvious and more stupid if this show had a glowing red sign pop up every time you tried. Oh, wait.
I'm not gonna lie, I find that really, really funny. There is an awkwardness to the show. There is a bit of an uncomfortableness when the joke doesn't land, and there are times it doesn't. But that I found really, really funny in its awkwardness. Personal preference.
Angela Anaconda has fantasies kind of like Doug, except she's a sociopath.
That I think is unfair. Now, it's the same criticism people have towards Kevin in Home Alone. And the reason, I've said this before, but the reason I personally don't take it all that seriously is because I was this person. Now, how you think and how you act are two totally different things. While she does get violent revenge fantasies in the show, I wouldn't even say the majority of them are that sadistic. I honestly think of them in terms of Looney Tunes style violence. And it's very, very possible for somebody who's healthy, well-adjusted, and non-disturbed to still get violent revenge fantasies. Now, Angela never actually harms anybody in the show. She can be manipulative, she can be arrogant, but she never causes serious physical harm in this show. And the revenge fantasies, I think, are very realistic to people who do think like that. It comes from being in this unfair world. A lot of people do think that way, and people have told me that, yeah, they do get revenge fantasies. I think part of it comes from the inability to accept that life is just not fair sometimes. And the other part of it is having a strong sense of justice, even if it's misguided, because there are times, especially when you're a kid, you don't always get the full scope of things. But honestly, with her, I think, also having a dark sense of humor, I do find the revenge fantasies really, really funny.
This show says an alpha bitch tends to die a lot.
Overstatement. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even think the majority of them are that sadistic. I've seen a good chunk of the show at this point. I honestly think the sadistic ones are even funnier. But I wouldn't even say that's the majority of it.
Got breakfast at my house.
Good.
Oh wait, one more thing before he talks about this cutaway joke. But he does raise an interesting point that if you're gonna have the revenge fantasies in this show, they have to be justified every single time. And one of the interesting points he raises, at least for this episode, is that Nanette's not bad enough to deserve the cruel and hilarious revenge fantasies. And for this episode, I can see that. She does come off a bit more sympathetic in this episode, but there are plenty of other episodes where she's not. But it's true. They have to be justified every single time. There are people in the audience who feel like it isn't. Understandable.
Not that fucking baby.
Baby Lulu.
Milk?
Okay, first of all, that cutaway joke it doesn't really go into too much detail here, but she's having cereal, she gets hit in the face with Baby Lulu's milk bottle. And I'm not gonna lie, when Mark and Derek say, oh...
Did someone say milk?
I wanted to know what the fuck did they do to it, because my mind went to dark places with it. This is one of those times when, yeah, the awkwardness of it, the joke doesn't quite land. Could have said got milk or something, because she gets hit in the face.
We see that Angela's teacher won't be coming in today because she's sick, and the background music makes it sound like she's dead.
Which is hilarious.
What are we supposed to do with our homework?
Johnny Abadi, Angela's dim-witted best friend, decides to make paper airplanes with them. Because he's Angela's dim-witted best friend, we know this won't work out very well. We see the substitute, and good God, what's wrong with their necks? I just realized it, but everyone's necks look painfully compressed. The substitute gives Angela's homework a bullseye and it's a back.
Here's the thing. I know he's talked about the necks on this, but when I first saw the design for the character, Jerry, my first thought was, this looks like a mock-up of what the alt-right thinks a feminist is. Although, looking a little deeper, I do stalk Sue Rose's artwork. I don't know, this is speculation, but I think the character might have been designed based on her mother, because she's done similar drawings, quite a few of them, of a character that looks, of a woman that looks very similar, and she says it's her mom, so I wondered if that was the inspiration here. I also think Jerry had a lot of interesting potential, because an overwhelming majority of the show shows Angela getting antagonized by somebody. It's actually really refreshing to see somebody who's on her side. Unfortunately, she's not the most professional character, and she's only around this one episode, but I really do think that there was potential with this character and what you could do with this dynamic. And this episode, I will admit, is not one of the stronger episodes. But I don't think saying that is a reflection of the full show. I don't think... She doesn't just fantasize about hurting people who've done nothing to her. Because Nanette does antagonize her. She does try to get her in trouble. She does seem to have it out for her at times, because she shows up a lot, specifically with that goal in mind.
But as class monitor, I feel it is my duty to inform you of today's academic agenda.
Oh no, such an asshole. She does her responsibilities. Oh my god, how horrible. Now, if she got angry at Angela for doing something like this and being the good kid, then you'd be doing something right. I'm
gonna disagree on that. Having rewatched this episode, now the teacher's explaining what she's doing. Nanette interrupts her and is trying to show off, trying to be a kiss-ass. She's an entitled student, so she's being annoying. Maybe not vengeance-worthy, but annoying nonetheless, especially because Miss Brinks enables it.
I'm also prepared, unlike some students.
See, she antagonizes her.
Of my rainforest.
She sounds like an alpha bitch, but she's not an alpha bitch. She's an idiot.
Entitled brat. That's the character.
We'll do a project about rainforest food from the rainforest. I already called dibs on it, Angela Anaconda.
Okay.
What? Do you normally call her by her first name and her last name? Every single time? Why am I asking? Considering this show, I know the answer is yes.
I do feel that's a bit unfair, because the characters' names are very interesting and very unique. That's something that's common in Sue Rose's work. Pepper Ann has very much the same thing with the names going on. The fact that the characters call each other by first and last name in Angela Anaconda is, I think, a stylistic thing, and to be fair, I think criticizing it's a bit of a nitpick, because they are not doing it every other sentence.
Also, how did Johnny Abadi, Angela's dimwit best friend, get only a cupcake for lunch?
He fucking paid for it, that's how.
Cafeteria gives those out and nothing else. Also, in Johnny Abadi, Angela's dim-witted best friend, suggests that she do a project on cannibals, Angela Anaconda imagines ordering her enemies at a restaurant because she's a fucking sociopath.
I'm one to talk on the cannibalism jokes first. I find that really, really funny.
But to want to eat her? What kid would ever want to do that?
Because Johnny Abadi's the one who suggested it, that's how.
Normal human being would ever want to cannibalize someone.
Good point.
Trying to cannibalize someone, by definition, makes you not a normal, functioning person.
Just a heads up, she doesn't actually do that in the show. It was a reaction to something Johnny Abadi said. Now, she'll have violent revenge fantasies, but what she actually does in the show is quite tame. Usually the actions she does to stand up for herself or take revenge are really small, really stupid, really petty. And other times in the show, it's karma just working itself out.
This person loses a tooth on a sandwich.
Her name is Gina Lash.
Johnny Abadi, Angela's dim-witted best friend, wants it for his project. She'll only trade it for the cupcake. But if she wanted the cupcake, she should have ordered one.
Good point.
Clearly didn't bring it from home.
Good point.
Wants to eat with Angela and her friends because reasons. And potatoes. And the substitute doesn't like the sandwich.
I'm not gonna lie, this is something I do find a little odd, in that it seems a little unprofessional on the teacher's part. Now, Miss Briggs is not a professional teacher either, but Jerry's not, I think it's a little weird that Jerry's eating with the students. Anyways, I might be focusing a little too much on it. This might be from a different time, different place. I don't know if this was a bit more normal in other parts of the country, in other times in the 20th century, because the show has a bit of an older feel to it. Maybe I'm overanalyzing. That's fun, though.
So, she's a dick to Nanette because the world can be an ass to her if the main character says that she's mean. Apparently.
Here's another one I do disagree with. The way I interpreted this show, now Nanette's interrupting her, she's trying to kiss ass the way that she does with Miss Brinks, and she usually gets away with it, so she thinks she can get away with it here. Jerry, while she's not the most professional teacher, I don't think she's all that awful to her. Because Nanette's going out of her way to try and get her attention, but Jerry politely says no, no, no thank you, every single time.
She goes to suck up to another teacher. Whatever. I hate all these fucking characters anyway.
More for me to love.
And because Johnny Abadi, Angela's dim-witted best friend, touches the glue, he gets pulled away and the treehouses crumble.
Actually, looking closely, Johnny got stuck, but Nanette's the one who pulled him away, which ends up breaking the project. So she's getting her in trouble yet again.
She has a fantasy of, oh my fucking god! I thought that Angela had problems before, but what the fuck?
I don't find that weird. Miss Brinks and Nanette's relationship in the actual show is way weirder. They're having a vacation. They're playing croquet as if it's Heather's.
It starts raining. The substitute teacher saves Angela, and then they save some crocodiles, for some reason. Putting them on a boat kind of seems counterproductive in helping the crocodiles. And they let Nanette and her teacher fall over the edge, presumably to their death.
Woohoo!
But not after they pelt them with coconuts. Please tell me what we're supposed to like about this character.
Oh, I got this one. 1, that's my face. 2, while I can't speak to other fans of the show, who, by the way, there are fans out there, I think in very similar ways that she does, in that, especially as a kid. Now, the context is she's in an unfair world. Her classmate bullies her, her teacher enables it, and she also gets it at home from her older brothers. She is powerless day in and day out, and the only way to survive is within the imagination. She's understandably angry and frustrated at the situation because life is not fair, and sometimes it's hard to accept that. She's not some of these people, she's not one of these characters who just sits around taking abuse and says, oh, work hard, be kind. No, she gets angry like a real person. Now, I will give it this. The show does not always justify it. And there are times that she can look unsympathetic. So it's a fair point. But when they do, the fact that she's allowed to get angry at the situation and just to herself and express that is extremely cathartic to watch. Say you're somebody who's bullied consistently, or has a teacher who hates you for a really petty reason, or you're that misunderstood kid who gets in trouble a lot. On that reason, this show is extremely relatable. Now, just a heads up, this show lasted 65 episodes. That's a lot, and it's hard to get to that point. It had consistently high ratings when it was on, and from girls and boys. It had a significant amount of merchandise, and it won a Gemini Award. So, even though it now gets criticized, even though a majority of people hate it, it made a fucking impact on our lives. Look at the view count of some of the people who've talked about this show, some of the big name reviewers. It gets a lot of views. If there were truly nothing to offer in this show, it would have been canceled and forgotten. But because we're talking about it, there is a lot to offer. Now, we may be sick of hearing about reboots in Hollywood, but if any show deserves one, it is this. Think about it. Instead of remaking a show that's already considered great, that everyone loves, and that people complain about when it's done differently, why not reboot one that's highly flawed? The fact that so many people remember it guaranteed an audience, and the fact that it's so criticized and so widely hated among many people on the internet gives the right showrunner a ton of creative freedom to explore this world and its untapped potential, because there are good ideas here. It's an extremely relatable concept, and with today's technology and animation, you could do something with this style. You could make it more like a cartoon. Think of what South Park does, or what we did with the Lego Movie. There is potential here. It's untapped. And I'm gonna be the one to do it. You know what? Next week, in addition to my rewatch video, I'm gonna make a video of what an original episode, me running it, would look like.
No!
side? Well, see you in my revenge fantasies. Shibby dooby doo wah wah with her fuckers.